Last time, Ethan Caldwell uncovered the painful truth. His wife Clara and her mother Evelyn saw his daughter Mira as an obstacle to their perfect legacy. With Mira's heart breaking and a sinister plan unfolding, Ethan vowed to fight back. Now he's ready to turn the tables, starting with a project that will bind him and Mira closer than ever. At home, Ethan made a decision. "Get changed into something comfortable," he told Mira as they stepped inside, the house's familiar scent of wood polish and coffee grounding him. "I want to show you something." Mira nodded, her steps lighter as she headed upstairs. 10 minutes later, they stood in Ethan's workshop, a converted shed behind the house. The air smelled of pine, varnish, and sawdust, a comforting blend that had defined Ethan's life since the accident. Tools hung neatly on pegboards, their handles worn from years of use. A workbench ran along one wall, scattered with wood shavings and sketches for new projects. In the center stood a half-finished oak chest, its grain glowing in the afternoon light, its edges smooth but unfinished, waiting for their touch. "What do you think?" Ethan asked, gesturing to the chest, his voice warm with pride. Mira's eyes lit up, the first genuine spark he'd seen in weeks. "It's amazing, Dad. What is it?" "A hope chest," Ethan said, running his hand over the wood, its surface cool and solid. "A traditional gift for daughters, a place to keep special things, memories, dreams, treasures. I thought we could build it together, make it ours." "Really?" Mira's smile was wide, unguarded, her fingers tracing the chest curves. "You'll let me help?" "I'm counting on it," Ethan said, handing her a piece of sandpaper. Its grit rough against her palm. "Start here, nice and smooth. Follow the grain. Like this." He demonstrated, his movements slow and deliberate, the sandpaper's rasp a soothing rhythm. Mira took the sandpaper, her brow furrowing in concentration as she mimicked his technique. Ethan watched, a moment of perfect clarity washing over him. This, building something with his daughter, creating a legacy of their own, was worth any fight, any sacrifice. He thought of a day last summer when Mira had helped him refinish an antique chair for a client. She'd spilled varnish on her jeans, laughing as she tried to wipe it off. And Ethan had realized then how much she loved the shop, how it grounded her the way it grounded him. That memory, small but vivid, fueled his resolve now. As Mira worked, dust gathering on her sleeves, Ethan felt the tension of the day dissolve. "Can we carve something on it?" Mira asked, pausing to brush hair from her eyes. "Like a design?" "Anything you want," Ethan said. "What's in your head?" "Maybe a river," she said, her voice thoughtful. "Like the one we hiked to last year with the rocks all smooth from the water. It felt alive." Ethan smiled, picturing the Cuyahoga's gentle curves, the way Mira had sketched it from memory. "A river it is. We'll sketch it tomorrow." Hours passed, the workshop a cocoon of shared purpose. When Clara's car pulled into the driveway, Ethan checked his watch, surprised by the time. "We should clean up," he said, brushing sawdust from his hands. "Dinner soon." "Can we work on it again tomorrow?" Mira asked, her eyes bright, a smudge of dust on her cheek. "Every day until it's done," Ethan promised, his heart full. As they walked back to the house, Mira slipped her hand into his, a gesture she hadn't made in months, claiming she was too old for it. The simple act nearly undid him, a reminder of what he was fighting for. Inside, Clara was in the kitchen, her expression tight, her hands busy with a salad. "You left without saying goodbye," she said, her voice clipped, not looking up. "We said goodbye to Owen," Ethan replied evenly, washing his hands at the sink. "That seemed enough." "Mom was upset," Clara said, tossing lettuce with more force than necessary. "It's her grandson's birthday." "Evelyn's often upset," Ethan said, drying his hands, his tone mild but pointed. "It's practically her hobby." Clara's eyes flashed, but she kept her voice low. "What were you doing in the workshop?" "Working on a project with Mira," Ethan said, leaning against the counter, his posture relaxed but his gaze steady. "An oak chest, like a hope chest." Clara's laugh was forced, a sharp note in the quiet kitchen. "How old-fashioned." "Some traditions are worth keeping," Ethan said, his words deliberate. "Unlike treating a child like an outsider in her own family." Clara's hands stilled, the salad tongs hovering. "We're back to that?" "We never left it," Ethan said, his voice low but firm. "Your family's made it clear where Mira stands, and you've made it clear where you stand with them." "That's not fair," Clara said, her voice rising, then softening as Mira's footsteps sounded upstairs. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Mom's expectations, her health. Stop hiding behind what's fair, Ethan cut in, stepping closer, his voice controlled but unyielding. Face what's true. You promised to be a mother to Mira. Instead, you've been an accomplice to her exclusion. Clara's mask slipped, her eyes flashing with fear, then defiance. It's complicated, Ethan. You don't know what it's like to balance. It's actually simple, Ethan said, his voice steady as stone. Either Mira's family all the way, no exceptions, or she isn't. And if she isn't, then neither am I. Fear flickered in Clara's eyes, raw and unguarded. What are you saying? I'm saying choices have consequences, Ethan said, his words slow, deliberate. You and Evelyn have been making choices for months. Did you think there wouldn't be a reckoning? Before Clara could respond, Mira appeared in the doorway, her hair damp from washing up, her expression wary as she sensed the tension. The conversation halted, the air charged like the moment before a storm. Ethan gave Mira a reassuring nod, but inside his resolve hardened. The battle lines were drawn, and he was ready to fight. Window, their pine scent mingling with the crisp winter air, and a 20-foot spruce glittered on the lawn, its ornaments catching the streetlights like tiny stars. The annual Christmas party was in full swing, a showcase of Evelyn's wealth and influence. But Ethan felt no awe, only a steely resolve. In the passenger seat, Rachel Voss adjusted her red blazer, a bold contrast to the cocktail dresses they'd soon encounter. Mira, 14, peered from the back seat, her sapphire dress shimmering with silver threads, a pendant that once belonged to her mother, Lily, gleaming at her throat. Wow, Rachel whistled, her breath fogging the window. Subtle as a sledgehammer. Mira leaned forward, her voice soft but tinged with awe. Grandma Evelyn's tree wins the Maplewood contest every year. It's like a law of nature. Of course it does, Rachel muttered, her tone dry as the snow. Evelyn doesn't do second place. Ethan checked his watch. 6 odd p.m. Exactly. Neither early enough to seem eager, nor late enough to draw Evelyn's ire. Timing was everything tonight. Everyone ready? He asked, meeting Mira's eyes in the rearview mirror. She nodded, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. They'd discussed what might happen, preparing her without revealing the full scope of his plan, a counter-offensive to protect her from Evelyn and Clara's schemes. Remember, Ethan said gently, his voice a steady anchor. No matter what goes down in there, we're leaving together. You and me, always. And me, Rachel added, winking. The awesome aunt package deal. Mira's smile strengthened, a flicker of her usual spark. Let's do this. Inside, the foyer opened into a grand living room, its chandeliers casting a warm glow over at least 50 guests. Champagne flutes clinked. A jazz trio played in the corner, their notes weaving through laughter and conversation. The air smelled of mulled wine and cedar, the decor a flawless blend of elegance and excess. Velvet drapes, gold-trimmed garlands, a fireplace roaring with logs that snapped like distant thunder. Ethan scanned the crowd, nodding to familiar faces. Neighbors, Clara's colleagues, Evelyn's business associates. He spotted Lucas Hayes near the bar, who raised his glass in a subtle salute. Everything was in place. Clara appeared at Ethan's side, her green dress matching the decor with uncanny precision, her smile fixed like a porcelain mask. You're on time, she said, her voice smooth but her eyes wary. And you brought Rachel, as discussed. As promised, Ethan corrected, his tone mild but pointed. Rachel gave a cheerful wave, her blazer a defiant splash of color. Love what you've done with the place, Clara. Very Martha Stewart meets Versailles. Clara's smile tightened, a muscle twitching in her jaw. Mother's by the fireplace. She's expecting us. I bet she is, Ethan said, placing a protective hand on Mira's shoulder. Lead the way. They wove through the crowd, Mira's dress catching admiring glances, her pendant a quiet rebellion against the Strathmore opulence. Ethan felt a surge of pride. She was herself, unapologetically, despite the room's judgment. He remembered a moment from last Christmas, when Mira had given him a hand-painted ornament, a tiny wooden star, its edges uneven but heartfelt. For our tree, she'd said, shy but proud. That star hung in their living room now, a symbol of their bond, stronger than any heirloom. Evelyn held court near the massive stone fireplace, resplendent in emerald silk that hugged her still striking figure at 72. Her silver hair was expertly coiffed, her posture regal, her smile a calculated blend of warmth and control. That smile faltered when she spotted Rachel, her eyes narrowing like a hawk sighting an intruder. "Ethan, Mira, how festive you look," Evelyn said, kissing Clara's cheek while her gaze locked on Rachel. "And this must be a friend?" "Rachel Voss," Ethan said, his voice steady. "Mira's aunt, my first wife's sister." Evelyn's lips pursed as if tasting something sour. "How unexpected. There's food in the dining room, drinks at the bar. Make yourselves at home." The dismissal was clear, her attention shifting to a nearby guest, but Clara shot Ethan a nervous glance before following her mother. "Charming," Rachel muttered, her voice low. "Real Christmas spirit there." "Come on," Ethan said to Mira, guiding her toward a table of cookies shaped like snowflakes, their sugar dusting the air. "Let's find those treats your friend Owen was raving about." For the next hour, they navigated the party, accepting compliments on Mira's dress, making small talk with neighbors, carefully avoiding Evelyn and Clara. Ethan noted with satisfaction that Marcus Tate, a community organizer, an old army buddy, had arrived, deep in conversation with a woman he recognized as a reporter from the Cleveland Plain Dealer. The chessboard was set, the pieces in motion. At 8:01 p.m., Evelyn tapped a spoon against her champagne flute, the chime cutting through the room's hum. "Friends, family, honored guests," she began, her voice carrying effortlessly. "Thank you for joining our annual Christmas celebration. As is tradition, we have special gifts for the family to open before the main exchange." Servants appeared with elegantly wrapped packages, distributing them to Evelyn's children, grandchildren, and extended family. Sophie unwrapped a silver bracelet, Nathan a monogrammed watch. Each gift met with gasps and murmurs. Mira stood empty-handed, her expression steady but resigned, her fingers brushing her pendant for comfort. Rachel squeezed her shoulder, whispering, "They're lost, kiddo." Ethan checked his watch. It was time. "Mrs. Strathmore," he said, his voice clear and resonant, carrying across the sudden lull. "I believe I have something for you as well." All eyes turned to him as he stepped forward, reaching into his jacket to withdraw a small box wrapped in silver paper, its ribbon gold and precise, matching the party's theme. Surprise flickered across Evelyn's face, quickly replaced by suspicion, her fingers tightening around her flute. "How thoughtful," she said, her voice cool, accepting the box with reluctant hands. "The least I could do," Ethan replied, his tone pleasant but unyielding. "Family's about sharing, isn't it?" Evelyn's eyes narrowed, but she untied the ribbon with precise movements, the paper crinkling softly. The room watched, a murmur rippling through the crowd. This wasn't part of Evelyn's scripted spectacle. She opened the box, revealing a slim black binder, its cover unadorned but heavy with intent. Her brow furrowed as she flipped it open, her face paling as she registered the contents. Photos, signatures, financial records, emails. Her eyes widened in shock, then narrowed in fury. "What is this?" she hissed, soft enough that only those closest could hear, her voice a blade wrapped in velvet. "This," Ethan said, his voice ringing clear, "is a collection I've been working on. Documents detailing the Strathmore Foundation's tax evasion. Shell companies, fraudulent deductions, hidden accounts. Quite an interesting read." A shocked silence fell, the jazz trio's notes fading into the background. Clara pushed forward, her face ashen, her dress catching the firelight. "Ethan, stop this right now," she demanded, her voice trembling. "Why?" Ethan met her gaze steadily, unflinching. "Isn't honesty your mother's mantra? She's just being honest, right?" Evelyn's voice was ice, her composure a thin veneer. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Actually, I do," Ethan said, gesturing to the binder. "Every form, every transaction, every shell company from the past 7 years, including those with Clara's signature. Insurance, I presume, to keep her in line." Clara gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "I never signed—" "You did," Ethan said, his smile without warmth. "Your mother made sure of it. If she goes down, so do you." Lucas stepped forward, the reporter at his side, her notepad already out. "Copies of those documents are with the state tax office and the Plain Dealer," Lucas said, his voice calm but authoritative. "Ms. Rivera's been working on an expose. It runs tomorrow." Chaos erupted. Guests whispered, some edging toward the doors, their champagne forgotten. Clara grabbed Ethan's arm, her nails digging through his suit jacket. "What have you done?" she demanded, her voice breaking, tears glistening in her eyes. "I've protected my daughter," Ethan said, gently but firmly removing her hand, "from people who see her as a problem to be solved rather than a child to be loved. This was always about Mira." Rachel appeared, Mira close behind, her sapphire dress a beacon in the chaos. "Time to go," Rachel said, her voice steady. "This party's about to get ugly." Evelyn's voice cut through the tumult, sharp as a whip. "This isn't over, Ethan." "You're right," he said, meeting her gaze without fear. "It's just beginning." As they moved toward the door, Clara followed, her composure shattered, her heels clicking frantically. "Ethan, please, we can talk about this. Work something out." He paused, turning to face her one last time, the snow visible through the open door, dusting the steps like powdered sugar. "There's nothing to work out, Clara. You made your choice. You chose your mother over your family, over Mira. Now you'll both face the consequences." "You can't do this to us," Clara pleaded, her voice raw. "I didn't do this," Ethan said, his arm around Mira's shoulders, protective and unyielding. "You did it to yourselves." Outside, the snowy night enveloped them, the cold sharp but cleansing. Mira looked up, her eyes wide, her breath clouding in the air. "Dad, is it really over?" "Not quite," Ethan said softly, his voice a promise, "but we're getting there." The drive home was silent, the snow transforming Maplewood into a world of quiet possibility. Ethan thought of a winter years ago, when he and Lily had taken Mira sledding, her laughter echoing down the hill. That joy, that connection, was what he fought for now. A future where Mira could be herself, unburdened by others' expectations. Back home, the house smelled of pine and coffee, a comforting contrast to the sterile opulence of Evelyn's estate. Ethan sent Mira upstairs to change, her footsteps light on the stairs, while he and Rachel sat at the kitchen table, the events of the evening settling around them like dust after a storm. Rachel poured them each a whiskey, the amber liquid catching the light as she slid a glass to Ethan. "That," Rachel said, raising her glass, "was something else. You played that like a maestro." "It's not over yet," Ethan said, taking a sip, the whiskey's burn grounding him. "Evelyn won't go down without a fight." Rachel nodded, her tattoos peeking from her sleeve. A phoenix, a reminder of her own reinventions. "What's next?" "You've got the legal side with Lucas, the media with that reporter. What's left?" Before Ethan could answer, the sound of tires crunching on the driveway cut through the quiet. Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Well, that didn't take long." Ethan moved to the window, parting the curtain. Clara's car sat in the drive, snow melting on its hood. "It's Clara, alone." "Want me to stay?" Rachel asked, standing, her voice low. "No," Ethan said, his jaw tight. "Take Mira upstairs. Use the back stairs. I don't want her to see this." Rachel nodded, her expression a mix of concern and trust. "Be careful, Ethan." The moment she disappeared, the front door burst open, Clara standing in the entryway, snow clinging to her hair, her makeup smeared from tears. Her green dress was crumpled, her composure gone. "How could you?" she demanded, her voice ragged, stepping into the kitchen. "In front of everyone, our friends, my family, my mother's associates." Ethan leaned against the counter, his posture deceptively calm. "Our friends, your family," he repeated, his voice steady. "Interesting choice of words, Clara. Funny how Mira's never included in that." "This will destroy us," Clara said, her hands trembling as she gestured wildly. "Mom's foundation, her reputation, everything she's built." "I don't care about Evelyn's reputation," Ethan said, his voice low but unyielding. "I care about my daughter. This has always been about Mira." Clara's eyes flashed, desperation giving way to accusation. "You've been spying on us, haven't you? Recording us, digging into our lives." "I've been protecting my daughter," Ethan corrected, his voice a blade honed by months of betrayal. "Did you really think I wouldn't notice? The whispered conversations, the legal documents, the way you and Evelyn look at Mira like she's an inconvenience?" "That's not," Clara started, but Ethan cut her off, his voice rising for the first time. "Stop lying," he said, stepping closer, his control fraying but intact. "It's over, Clara. The pretending, the manipulation, all of it." Her expression shifted, shock giving way to calculation, her counselor's mask slipping back into place. "You can't prove any of this," she said, her voice steadier. "It's your word against ours. Mom has connections, lawyers." Actually, a new voice said, calm but firm, he can prove quite a bit. They turned to see Rachel at the foot of the stairs, phone in hand, her presence a quiet storm. I've got the recording right here, she said, her eyes locked on Clara. Thanksgiving night, you and Evelyn in the study, discussing how convenient it would be if Mira were at a boarding school, somewhere more appropriate for her development. Clara paled, her breath hitching. You had no right. I had every right, Rachel countered, stepping forward, her voice fierce. Mira's my niece, my blood. Unlike some, I take that seriously. Ethan nodded to Rachel, who pressed play. Evelyn's voice filled the room, crisp and calculating. Once the custody arrangement is finalized, we can revisit the boarding school option. St. Rosie's has an excellent program, far from here, very exclusive. Clara's recorded voice followed, hesitant but complicit. But what about Ethan? He'd never agree. Evelyn's reply was chilling. That's why we need the medical evaluation first, dear. His accident, the pain medication, the mood swings you've documented. It builds a compelling case for limited visitation at most. Mira will adjust. Children are resilient. She'll thank you later when she has the Strathmore name without all this complication. Rachel stopped the recording, her gaze unwavering. There's more. A lot more. Marcus has copies, so does his reporter friend at the Plain Dealer. Clara crumpled, sinking into a kitchen chair, her hands covering her face. You don't understand, she whispered, tears tracking through her makeup. Mom doesn't accept failure. After Jason left me at the altar, she was furious, humiliated. When I met you, she saw a way to fix me. A respectable man, stable, a widower with a kid. But Mira, she was always the sticking point. Mom doesn't like complications. And you? Ethan asked, his voice quiet but piercing. What's your excuse, Clara? She looked up, her eyes red, her voice barely audible. I wanted to make it work, to keep everyone happy. I tried, Ethan, in the beginning. I did. Everyone except Mira, Ethan said, his words a verdict. You tried for your mother, not for my daughter. Clara's shoulders shook, her voice breaking. You don't know what Mom's like when she decides something. She's relentless. I know exactly what she's like, Ethan said, crossing his arms. And now so will everyone else. The Plain Dealer's running the story tomorrow. Financial fraud, child neglect, the works. Marcus made sure of it. Clara's head snapped up, her eyes wide. Marcus Tate, your army buddy? The same, Ethan said, his voice calm but final. He's a community organizer now, connected in local media. This will ruin you, Clara, just as you planned to ruin Mira's place in my life. Realization dawned in Clara's eyes, her voice a whisper. You planned all of this, didn't you? From the beginning. Not from the beginning, Ethan said, his gaze steady. From the moment I realized what you and Evelyn were doing to my daughter. Every step, every move. I want to talk to Mira, Clara said, standing, her voice desperate. I need to explain. No, Ethan said, moving to the door, opening it pointedly, the cold air rushing in. You should leave. We both know you won't be coming back. Clara stood slowly, her dignity reassembling in fragments. This isn't the end, she said, her voice trembling but defiant. It is for us, Ethan said, his tone final. Divorce papers will be delivered tomorrow. The prenup you insisted on is clear about infidelity and criminal activity. You walk away with what you brought in, nothing more. You can't prove infidelity, Clara said, her voice rising, a last grasp at control. Rachel laughed, sharp and unyielding. Want to bet? Those business trips with Jason, your ex-fiancé? Not as discreet as you thought. Hotel staff talk, Clara, especially in a small town. Shock registered on Clara's face, her mouth opening, then closing. How did you? People notice things, Rachel said, crossing her arms, mirroring Ethan's stance. And I've got copies. Evidence. Lots of it. Defeated, Clara moved to the door, pausing on the threshold, snow melting in her hair. She looked back at the home she'd never enter again, her voice barely audible. I did care for her, you know, in my way. Your way wasn't enough, Ethan said, his words a quiet thunder. It never would have been. After Clara left, Rachel let out a long breath, sinking back into her chair. Well, that was intense. Thanks for the backup, Ethan said, his voice heavy with gratitude. Always, Rachel said, sipping her whiskey. Think Mira heard any of that? Probably, Ethan said, running a hand through his hair, the weight of the night settling in. I'll talk to her tomorrow, explain what I can. For what it's worth, Rachel said, her voice soft. You did the right thing. The only thing, given what they were planning. I know, Ethan said, moving to the window, watching Clara's taillights vanish into the snow. I just wish it hadn't come to this. He thought of a moment from his army days when Marcus had pulled him from a training exercise gone wrong, risking his own safety. We don't leave people behind, Marcus had said, clapping Ethan's shoulder. That loyalty, that brotherhood, had carried into this fight, Marcus's connections amplifying Ethan's plan. It wasn't revenge, it was protection, a line drawn to shield Mira from those who'd diminish her. Spring arrived in Maplewood, painting the town in shades of green and gold, the Cuyahoga River sparkling under April's sun. The divorce was finalized with surprising speed, Lucas's efficiency, and the overwhelming evidence Ethan had compiled, leaving little room for negotiation. The prenup Clara had insisted on, designed to protect her assets, became her undoing, its clauses on infidelity and criminal activity airtight. Evelyn's empire crumbled more slowly, but no less completely. The tax fraud investigation expanded, uncovering banking irregularities, misappropriated charitable funds, and evidence of bribery. Her estate was frozen, then seized to cover legal fees and penalties. Her name a cautionary tale in Maplewood's gossip circles. Ethan watched from a distance, taking no pleasure in their downfall beyond the security it provided Mira. The battle had never been about vengeance, only about creating a world where his daughter could thrive, unburdened by those who'd reject her. On a warm April afternoon, he stood in his workshop, applying a final coat of varnish to the completed oak chest. Sunlight streamed through the open windows, catching in the wood's rich grain, highlighting the intricate carvings Mira had designed. Rivers curling around the sides, stars scattered across the lid. A hidden compartment beneath a carved moon, perfect for secrets. The air smelled of varnish and fresh-cut grass, a promise of renewal. It's incredible, Rachel said, leaning in the doorway, her leather jacket slung over one shoulder. You two outdid yourselves. Mira's the artist, Ethan said, stepping back to admire their work, pride warming his voice. She's got an eye for detail I never had. Rachel smiled, her tattoos catching the light. A phoenix, a compass, symbols of her own journey. Wonder where she gets that from. Is she ready for the big reveal? Almost one, Ethan said, wiping his hands on a rag. She's picking which memories to include. They'd worked on the chest throughout the divorce proceedings, through the media storm that followed the plain dealer's expose, through the quiet afternoons when Mira would ask hard questions about family and belonging. Each session in the workshop had been a balm, a rebuilding of trust as tangible as the chest taking shape. Ethan remembered a day last month when Mira had struggled with a carving tool, her frustration bubbling over. I'm ruining it, she'd said, tossing the tool down. Ethan had sat beside her, guiding her hand, showing her how to let the wood guide the blade. It's not about perfection, he'd said. It's about the story it tells. She'd nodded, her focus returning, and the river she carved became the chest's heart. She's different now, Rachel observed, her voice thoughtful. Stronger, more sure of herself. She is, Ethan said, his voice thick with pride. She always had it in her. She just needed space to grow, and a father who'd fight for her. Rachel's smile was knowing. Any parent would do the same. We both know that's not true, Ethan said, his tone gentle but firm. He thought of his own father, a distant figure who'd left when Ethan was 10, his absence a wound that lingered. He'd vowed to be different for Mira, to be present, to build rather than break. Rachel checked her watch. I should go. Dinner shift at the cafe. Thanks for letting me see it. Thanks for everything, Ethan said, his voice heavy with gratitude. You've been a rock, Rachel. That's what family does, she said, giving him a quick hug, her jacket's leather cool against his arms. Call me tomorrow. Let me know how Mira likes it. After Rachel left, Ethan put the finishing touches on the chest, checking each joint and seam, ensuring it was perfect, or as close as human hands could make it. The hidden compartment, Mira's idea, was invisible unless you knew to press the carved moon just right, releasing a drawer with a soft click. He hung a brass key on a blue ribbon, Mira's favorite color, and angled the chest to catch the afternoon light, its oak glowing like honey. Dad? Mira's voice called from the house. Can I come out yet? 5 more minutes, Ethan called back, smiling as he set the stage. Final preparations. He opened the workshop door, the breeze carrying the scent of blooming lilacs. Okay, it's ready. Mira entered, carrying a cardboard box, her eyes widening as she saw the chest. Dad, she breathed, setting the box down. It's perfect. It's us. The chest stood 3 feet long and 2 feet high, its oak polished to a warm glow. The river carvings flowed around the sides, their curves alive with movement, while the lid's stars formed constellations Mira had named herself. Lily's light, Baxter's rest, after her mother and their old dog. The hidden compartment's moon was subtle, its edges blending seamlessly with the wood, a secret only they shared. Want to do the honors? Ethan asked, handing her the key, its ribbon soft in her hands. Mira unlocked the chest with careful movements, the lock clicking softly. She lifted the lid, the scent of oak and varnish filling the air, fresh and promising. Kneeling beside her box, she began placing her memories inside, each item a chapter of her life. A sketch of Lily, drawn from an old photo, her smile captured in soft pencil lines. A river stone from a hike, its surface smooth as glass. A letter from Rachel, written when Mira turned 12, full of stories about Lily's wild youth. Photos spanning years. Mira as a toddler, giggling in Ethan's arms. Mira with friends at a school fair. Mira with Rachel, laughing over ice cream. A birthday card from her 10th birthday, signed by her entire art class. Ethan watched, his throat tight, as Mira handled each item with reverence. What's that one? He asked, nodding to a folded piece of paper she withdrew last. My list, Mira said, unfolding it carefully, her handwriting neat and deliberate. What real family means. I've been working on it since everything. She handed it to him, and Ethan read aloud, his voice steady despite the emotion rising in his chest. Real family stands up for you, even when it's hard. Real family sees you for who you are, not who they want you to be. Real family builds things together, not just chess, but trust. Real family stays when others leave. Real family forgives mistakes but remembers promises. Real family isn't always blood, but it's always love. Ethan swallowed hard, the words of Mira to their journey. This is perfect, Mira, he said, his voice thick. Not quite, she said, taking the paper back and placing it in the chest, her movements deliberate. One more thing. From her pocket, she withdrew a small wooden carving, a leaf, its veins etched with care. Ethan recognized it instantly. He'd carved it when Mira was a baby, a symbol of the family they'd built, tucked away in his desk after Lily's death. Too painful to look at. I found it when I was looking for tape, Mira said, her voice soft. Is it okay if I put it in? It's more than okay, Ethan said, kneeling beside her, his eyes stinging. It belongs there. Mira placed the leaf in the center, arranging the other items around it, a constellation of memories. When she was satisfied, she closed the lid gently, the lock clicking with soft finality. Leaning against Ethan's shoulder, she sighed, content. So what happens now? Ethan put his arm around her. This girl who'd endured so much yet emerged stronger, this young woman shaping her own path. We keep building, he said, his voice a promise, one day at a time, together, always together. Mira's smile reached her eyes, bright and certain. I know, Dad, she said simply. I know. Outside, Maplewood buzzed with spring. Children laughing in the distance, birds singing in the oaks, the river's gentle rush, a steady heartbeat. Inside the workshop, father and daughter sat beside the chest they'd built, not just of wood and nails, but of resilience, love, and hard-won wisdom. The past was behind them, its shadows fading in the light of what they'd created. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but full of possibility, a canvas for their own story.